happy birthday, Reed.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. This has been we've had a little busy night, a little busy morning with you. I hope everything is okay as well. I appreciate your kind words.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting 24 hours. Welcome back from Vegas as well. I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know that I was very close to a planned detonation that shouldn't have been a detonation the size it was, but my ears are still, I feel like I'm still taking it easy with the ears, so I'm going to take it easy on this week's podcast. Reed's basically doing all of the interviews. I'm just coming in to give my 2 cents here, but yeah, anyway, we're all good.
I never there to be a doubt on any clout chasing. There's been a lot of comments. Do you even care about the CFL? Are you just trying to grow your podcast? Paul literally couldn't hear 12 hours ago. My tooth is still about to fall out of my mouth. We are still recording this episode on my birthday, so we're good. We don't need any. But I would never want there to be any doubt about the true passion and love behind this podcast.
That's true. That's very true. So we're not doing this just to take over things. Like, we're not taking over your Canada Day. Did you know you were born on Canada Day? Did you know that?
I did tweet that out. I said, Happy Canada Day. We're recording on July 1st. This is also my birthday. That will be one other thing that XFL fans can co-opt from the CFL is Canada Day now. That is a National Markcast Day. So yeah.
Taking it all over. We're taking it all over.
Yeah, it's coming.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. It's kind of a discombobulated week, but we're pushing through nonetheless.
Yeah, this is I'm gonna put together a funny title, but this is going to be the buffet episode. I just came back from Vegas. Buffets are slowly opening. We're gonna have XFL stuff, obviously, CFL stuff, obviously. We're gonna have some USFL notes. We have some Major League Football notes. We have Josh Davis coming on to talk about ELF coverage. So all the things this week. So there's going to be a lot of different things on the smorgasbord of food. We have Tim Baines coming on he is with Postmedia. We talk a lot about the REDBLACKS, getting up for the REDBLACKS season with the CFL. We get his thoughts on sports betting, the XFL stuff, everything. We have Will with the Argos Fancast coming on. We're going to talk with the Argos. I was trying to get some more other team specific podcasts. And then, like I said, Josh Davis coming on to do ELF stuff. So there should be a lot of different spring league alternate football things for you to feast on in this buffet. You like how I did that?
I get it. I totally understand where I'm picking up what you're putting down. The first note here that you have in here are the episodes too long.
We had our first comment ever in the history of the world, because I keep you apprised to all this stuff. We had our first comment in the world that said the episodes are too long. One gentleman in the history of our world commented on the YouTube. He goes, your episodes are too long. He goes, the episodes I normally listen to are 45 minutes. Well, we've never even done a 45-minute episode.
No, we haven't. You found a way to take, nothing into an hour-long episode. I think the shortest episode we had was like 52 minutes.
Yeah. So, and then immediately people commented and they go, they do it user-friendly. They put the time codes, listen to what you want, listen during the week. So I disregarded that comment entirely. And this is going to be, no, I'm kidding. But no, I just thought it was funny that I know that Paul thinks sometimes they get a little long, but one comment ever in the history of the world that said they were too long.
Well, Will Purvis has also said they're too long.
Well, he doesn't comment if he wanted to comment on the YouTube video, then we could talk about it. Anyway, but no, lots of stuff today. I appreciate y'all sticking with us. Yes. And we are, I have my birthday, Zoa. It's a little early, but we flew in late last night from Vegas. And Kevin, I think someone commented on the YouTube to bring back the Cam Pop. So there you go.
Okay. Glad we have that back.
Do you see the couple of YouTube comments that I pulled out for us to talk about?
I did. Yes. Mike Horgan, first and foremost, he's basically saying what we've been saying. He's having trouble understanding how single game betting makes the CFL a more viable league. And he understands the sponsorship and everything like that, but he's having the same concerns we're having. Reed in his GIF game will have the Michael Scott GIF going, thank you. And it's basically what we've been saying for,
like that.
weeks.
I do like this that he goes, you're supposed to bet on, players, fantasy. The CFL doesn't market their players. So how are we supposed to know like who to wager and bet on? He goes, please forgive my ignorance. I'm just a fan. I'm going to watch anyway. I see the rainbow, just not the pot of gold at the end. I don't know, again, we all single game sports, but I see the rainbow. I don't see the gold there. So
I think that's where we're all at with this single game betting. Well, not we're all at. Everybody, there's some people that think this is the silver bullet that's going to save the league again. It's like, I don't see it. To have people care about your product enough to do the single game betting, the ratings have to be there, and the ratings aren't quite there to make you think like, oh, this will definitely work out. I don't know. Robert Schmigilski.
This is a great name. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry. Schmigilski.
There you go.
Okay. I don't plan on watching the upcoming CFL season. No preseason season. Too many retirements. The football is going to be sloppy, and they expect me to pay money to subscribe to TSN Direct, which should really be more like Netflix, letting me watch what I want to watch when I want. The CFL should have had a bubble season last year.
I thought that was a good point. No preseason, going to be really sloppy football. I saw a lot of comments this week about that. That was one I cherry picked out to talk about. But yeah, I did think that those first couple of weeks are going to be, 16 months off. It's going to be, we watched the spring league and when they had all those players come in and they played a couple weeks, going in, it's going to be those first couple of weeks with no preseason. It's going to be a little scary.
Very true. So, with that all being said, we appreciate your YouTube comments. Please like and subscribe our videos. Hit the bell to get notified when we post new ones. Of course, Reed is taking those individual interviews out of every episode and posting those solo. If you just want to hear what our experts have to say, both Canadian and American experts have to say, feel free to like and subscribe to our page so you get all of those videos.
Yeah, and it's my birthday, so it's the freest, best gift you can ever give me is to subscribe today. It doesn't cost you a penny, and it would make me feel just swell. So thank you.
Yes, it would. Please make Reed feel swell today.
Just swell.
So that being said, we're moving on to our news now, and the Bombers, starting off, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, are hoping for a packed stadium, but if you haven't received both vaccine shots, you won't be able to attend.
How triggered do you think the CFL fan base was when this came out?
Depends. I mean, how is Winnipeg doing in terms of their second dose numbers? Because that's really it's a situation where it's like, is it fair to the fans if they're not getting their second dose in a timely fashion? If it's not fair to their fans, then why are you hoping for a packed stadium? Why are you selling a packed stadium if your second dose numbers aren't adequate to house a packed stadium is what I'm asking.
So I'm looking at Manitoba. Is that the correct numbers to look at?
I believe so. Yes.
Of eligible Manitobans, 73% have one dose and 42% have two doses as of this was updated yesterday as of 12:30 p.m.
That's not bad at all. And I think, and here's something that I think might actually help these teams get people into the stands. I think there's a feeling across, well, I can say here in America, there's a feeling across America where people are realizing the live events that they took for granted. People are going back to movie theaters in droves. They realize that like they took these things for granted, and maybe, just maybe, that might help revenues. If you were like, well, I don't want to go to the CFL game because I'm not really interested in Canadian football. Well, now you have a chance to go see live football for the first time in almost 2 years. You might be more inclined to go and attend a game. So that might help. I'm trying to look at this glass half full.
I will say many of the comments that I've read are people very triggered about this. It's a lot of, and I don't want to get too political on here, but a lot of the CFL fan base is more older, right, and a little bit maybe more conservative. And so the idea is people are very upset that you are forcing them to, and I'm just speaking from what they're very upset that they're being forced to get the vaccines to go see the football games.
Folks, private businesses can lay down any rules they want to make any guidelines they want. That being said, there's also the question now, well, the government's also potentially giving them loans to keep them afloat. So there's I can see kind of both sides of the coin in this aspect, where if you go into a store and they tell you to wear a mask or be vaccinated, that's a private business. But if you're going to a football game and those football teams are being subsidized by the government in light of the pandemic, those are your tax dollars. That's a little bit different. I see both sides of it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's when all this came out, I tweeted, I said, I'm so glad that every emotionally triggering thing now can all be included in the CFL stuff. So now we have vaccines and all this. Like, I'm so glad that was just what the CFL needed, was like now vaccine debates. Now I'm so glad.
Awesome stuff. CFL has appointed Dr. Bob McCormack and Dr. Dhiren Naidu as its chief medical officers. The league announced on Wednesday they'll lead a committee comprised of the top health professionals and executives from the league and its clubs. Basically, I'm assuming to help determine the protocols and go forward with that. As Reed drinks his own.
Do you think that, does this strike you that this came out like this happened June 30th? It's like not like March or February.
Or maybe last year when this pandemic was raging down here in the U.S. and you had to cancel your season. I don't know.
This seems a little weird. Training camps are supposed to start in 9 days as we're recording this on the 10th. It just seems a little... I'm glad we're doing it now, but it does seem... But anyway, obviously they need to get all this going, and it just seems when people ask like, well, what did you want the CFL to be doing here? Things like this, this, and hiring the chief medical officers. Anyway, but that just came out. I added that. That was official CFL press release, statements from Ambrosi and everything else. So
awesome. Canadian Football League has obtained sign off from the federal government for a 7-day quarantine as opposed to the 14-day quarantine prior to the start of training camps. According to our friend Farhan Lalji, the CFL has now received a signed and approved national interest exemption letter. Only a 7-day quarantine will be required, as the league has been expecting for a number of weeks, and planned as such. Players from out of town or out of country probably will make their way to training camps on July 1st or 2nd. So.
Yeah, so they're getting there now. We're going to quarantine. Yeah, I was thinking we should get Farhan back on. I had a clip here we were going to play, but we can talk through it. He just is so handsome and well spoken. I was watching him on TSI that we really should get him back on the show. So Farhan, friend of the show. But anyway, there was a thing too. He did a hit, and they were talking about the vaccines and stuff. And we were going to play the clip, but we'll basically like. They can't ask the players when they all come up. They can't ask them if they're vaccinated or not, right? And once they're in the training camp, I believe the medical officers that are involved with the teams are able to ask them, but the players can still choose to withhold. So it's kind of it's tricky with that. We're getting a lot of that with like the Cole Beasleys of the world down in the NFL, and it really is becoming this like, I get it, my body, my choice, but also like. It's hard, like I work for me, so I can do what I want. But if I was still working for the former news station I was working for, if they said, I don't know, anything, you got to do it or you got to go. There's line. I don't know. It gets tricky with all of that where you want to be employed to make. You get what I'm saying? Yeah,
there's OSHA guidelines in place for scenarios that you just described. Like currently at my station, if you are vaccinated, you're allowed to go maskless. If you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. But then again, you can't really ask someone their vaccination status. So I won't mention any names, but I do know that there are some people that are not vaccinated that are maskless, and we'll just leave it at that. It's I get the my body, my choice thing, but I always say that like my personal freedoms stop when I affect your personal freedoms. And if you are choosing not to get vaccinated or choosing not to protect yourself, then you are potentially upsetting my personal freedoms to live, breathe, stay out of the hospital, or work. So that's the thing that I err on when you talk about my body, my choice. Yeah, but your choice can affect people, and in that situation, I'm sorry, but it's not your choice. That's just.
I was going to say, what is your station's policies on potentially dislodging your eardrums from your skull?
Man,
That's
been quite the fun last 12 hours talking with everybody about that.
Yes. Anyway, so we're getting to and that's what I was going to say too. Yeah, because when I was in Vegas, like open season, I mean, it was open, the world open. You don't nothing.
When I was there, what, a month ago?
Yeah,
three or 4 weeks ago. That was the first day, wide open, no masks. If you were vaccinated, but again, even the unvaccinated people are not wearing masks.
Yep.
Come on.
Go with us.
The Players Association sharing comprehensive COVID-19 return to play requirements with the players. Some of the key items they've discussed in their team sessions. They're working with the CFL and government to loosen restrictions to align with the various amendments that the provinces are making, like making it hyper local. They expect that to happen after training camp.
Yeah, so these are supposedly going to be in effect through the second week of the regular season. Tim was talking today. We think it's going to be at least 6 weeks. He does. This is where, and then we have some player quotes coming up about all of these regulations. And this is the big debate right now is obviously in the NFL, they are treating vaccinated players very differently from non-vaccinated players, right? The protocols came out. So I bolded, this is why the Google Doc looks so long, but I just bolded some of these, like, they have to wear their masks all the time, except when in the home. You have to have your groceries delivered. Can't go out. If you go out to a restaurant, it can only be with people you're living with. Takeout preferred for all your meals, groceries. You can't go into any social establishment that does not have seating where physical distancing can be maintained. And then you see some of these ones. The big ones, Paul, are these away team travels. Like when you're traveling with your team, you see some of these.
Mm-hmm. Saying that you leaving the hotel for any other reason other than reasons directed by the club medical staff is prohibited. You go for walks outside of the hotel, but you're not permitted to visit any establishments of any kind. Face covering, physical distancing required. Club provided transportation at all times. No visitors are permitted anywhere in the hotel, including but not limited to personal rooms, lobbies, and common areas. Players and staff not permitted to visit each other's rooms, and meetings may only be held virtually on the road or rooms that maintain physical distance at all times. Meals will be provided by the direction of club staff. And if you order meals from, I guess, Skip the Dishes is like Postmates up there, Uber Eats, you'll be instructed on the protocol for picking up your order in the hotel lobby, and eating at hotel restaurants completely prohibited. Otherwise, unless it's approved by your football team and the CFL. My problem with all of this is that you're not taking into account vaccinated people.
Exactly. They're all, and that is the big debate. Is everyone's going to be under this? It is funny. I know Skip the Dishes because I watch Big Brother Canada, and they're always a big Skip the Dishes is a big Big Brother Canada sponsor. But this is where, and then we have some quotes with this, but like this is where the debate is coming in. This is a very, very restrictive to be living from July 2nd through potentially December 15th. That is a considerably long time to be living in this.
Very, very much so. Vernon Davis from the Alouettes, he tweeted out that CFL needs the same rules as the NFL as far as vaccinated or not vaccinated players. I completely agree. You follow the rules, you should be allowed a little bit more freedom than the people that aren't following the rules. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think one of these players, I think it was Vernon Davis, he was tweeting all this stuff out, and I was like, oh, he follows us. So maybe we'll, if he's in quarantine, maybe Vernon's a secret Markcast listener. Vernon, if you're listening, we'd love to get you on here in the next week while you're in your quarantine.
Definitely. Like the NFL's their protocols are, if you're not fully vaccinated, you're not going to be able to go to nightclubs, bars, house parties. And then, if you do this, you'll be fined a game check up to $50,000 for first offense, more after for violating these protocols. And if you're fully vaccinated, you won't be labeled a high risk, close contact, and subject to isolation and all that stuff in the NFL. And, the CFL players definitely want something similar to this, to where the vaccinated players are treated differently as opposed to the unvaccinated players. And of course, there's a lot of Americans coming over to Canada, and our numbers are much better in terms of the second dose. So, of course, there should be a little bit more leeway given to those that are following the rules.
Yeah, Brandon Banks, a couple of tweets, he goes, I'm just trying to figure out what was the point of us getting the shot if we're still going to be prisoner for months. And then he deleted this tweet, starting to think about this now. Do I really want to put myself in this situation for little to nothing?
Dude, the internet's written in pen, bro. You didn't delete anything.
Well, and he's a MOP. I mean, he was like the most outstanding player, whatever they don't have like the MVP up there. They have the MOP, but I mean, that's like that. That's a big name to be coming out. Ambrosi, his most recent that I saw, we at the CFL encourage everyone to get vaccinated when it's their turn. But we know that we must not rely on vaccination alone to keep people safe. That's why rapid testing has been supported, and obviously that's why they're putting everyone just kind of in the same bucket. So, but
I mean, okay, that's fine, but still, there's people that are following the rules and that should get tested. I know you just said that. I know you just said Brandon Banks is a big deal for most offensive player, but I'm pretty sure someone in the YouTube comments is going to say, "Oh, well, he's not that big of a deal." Someone's going to say that. Someone is definitely going to say that either on Twitter or on the YouTube comments. They're going to downplay the fact that the most outstanding player is not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
So Murray McCormick, he's going to be coming on a show. He covers the Rough Riders. He's going to be coming on here in the middle of training camp. I can't remember what date we have him coming on. He had this whole article about Brendan Labatt, where he is taking his time off this season. He saw all of the COVID stuff and he's taking his time off. He says, "I cherish my family. I cherish my time playing football. However, the ask has never been bigger to play and the reward has never been less." That's probably the biggest influence. And this was, he did the math. He says he's already given up 22% of his salary of $150,000 in 2021 due to the league playing. So he goes, in quarantine, I think the salary is about $550 a week, and it's 24/7 for 7 days. It's 168 hours for $550. So that's $3.28 an hour. And he's got a big contract. I mean, $150,000 is a lot bigger than some of those guys are getting.
Yeah. Wow. That's really eye-opening when you break it down to like, I'm getting paid $3.28 an hour to play football because I can't enjoy my time off. I can't, I mean, I guess I could get a video game system and get a Twitch account and start making revenue that way. But my God, man. My God.
That's like when we do like our wedding videos and people are, "Why does that cost $3,000? You're only there for 8 hours." It's like, well, actually it's, it's the 20 hours of time I got to talk to you ahead of time. That's the 40 hours I got to do afterward. And then dealing with you and like I'm really only getting paid like $1 an hour too. So
yeah, I come here and I shoot for 8 hours, but you're not seeing me edit your video for, another. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but he said, "I was under the assumption that if you were vaccinated, you'd be granted some freedoms." Tim Baines and I talk about this too, where he thinks that this is a surprise to a lot of players, and this is all coming out. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more retirements coming out, or people being disgruntled about this. I really think that they need to get this in order. So. One other thing, the Stampeders and Elks are trying to get people vaccinated. They're adding, like, we don't have to read all this stuff, but they're adding like Washington did this where you could do like a Washington lottery. Do you guys do it?
We did it too.
So you can get like a pair of season tickets to the Edmonton Elks.
Okay. I mean, $1 million would be great.
Yeah. Would you rather have Alberta residents that get $1 million or three season tickets to the Stampeders with merchandise packages?
I'll take the $1 million. I mean, I don't know how much season tickets cost, but after taxes, I don't know what Canadian taxes are. I don't know the exchange rate on that, but I think that you're still coming out ahead if you just take the $1 million.
They don't pay as much taxes on prize winnings. Like, so Big Brother US is 500,000. Big Brother Canada is only 100,000 because they don't get taxed the same. So it is actually $1 million is pretty good.
Like if you won $1 million in Canada, it would be better than if you won $1 million here in the States, depending on the state you win.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. A couple other notes here. We'll blast through some of this. We talked that they were going to do the scrimmages with the Bombers and the Riders and the Elks and the Stampeders. We're all going to do inter squad games. The CFL didn't sign off on any of that stuff. So like, they're trying to do all this. Gray champion defensive back Forrest Hightower retired. He goes, "If I ever play again, I'll play here. I'm really grateful." But, anyway, he made back-to-back Grey Cup appearances in Ottawa during the 2016 title game. He recorded defensive tackle, 2 interceptions, helped the Redblacks secure their first Grey Cup. Again, just every week, it seems like there's more and more retirements coming out.
Yep. Riders CEO Craig Reynolds expects single game betting to be the biggest revenue opportunity since television. Okay. If you look at what's happened since television, it's certainly one of, if not the biggest thing from a revenue opportunity. We know football is the most bet on sport in North America. We have that product here in Canada. And as a result of that, we have lots of opportunities to capture fans, capture casual fans, and capture fans in markets where the CFL isn't as strong.
This is one of those, like, when WWE was like, remember all those weird like social medias that they added? Like, it wasn't Vine, but they were like, oh, come follow us on. Remember, it seemed like every week they were trying to like,
it's a T word.
Like
Tout.
Yeah. But it's like this whole like, people bet on football in America. Like, we also have football, so people are going to vote. Like, it's this kind of mentality where, again, we had Nick Solsky, all this stuff last week. I just think, unless you're going to, like, I don't know, we talked about it with Tim, and he's like, well, obviously, they're going to get some money. I mean, obviously they're all going to get some money, but I worry about this. This to me is, and don't cancel me for this. This is my, I haven't crapped on 3 Down Nation in a while. This is the definition of small market. Like, this is why the CFL, to me, if you want to know, like, why does Reed think the CFL is failing, that quote unquote, having trouble getting by in 2021. So Hodge and Dunk, see 218 pass, we're changing the world. We're going to have billions of dollars, all this. On their podcast, they go, you could have custom-made prop bets at stadiums in which you could bet on something and win, for example, beer for the section of row that you sit in.
What is this? Minor league single A ball?
Yeah, this is like the Everett Aqua Sox. Like, hey, like, let's get some. Yeah, let's get a bucket of Bud Lights for the row.
Hey, if your section catches a foul ball, your section wins hot dogs.
Yeah, like this. I'm like, guys. It kills me. And like they tweeted, and they're like, and like Braden too. He's like, CFL Reddit. Oh, love this guy. Like, this is exactly what I'm like.
This is the game changer. Everything's a game changer.
NFL makes billions of dollars in sports betting, but yeah, the CFL is going to get 12 Coors Light for the stands, and that's going to be it's just the same difference.
Wow. The Edmonton Elks, your team, have lost another veteran talent to retirement. According to a friend of the show, Dave Campbell, Canadian receiver Anthony Parker has called it a career ahead of the season. He signed with Edmonton in 2019, but missed the entire 2019 campaign of course, to 2020 due to COVID. He's a 9-year veteran, and I know people probably say he's not that big of a deal, but I mean, you catch over 2,300 yards in 9 seasons in 117 games. That's not bad. Those aren't bad numbers.
Yeah, going down. Just a couple others here. I should have put that with the other retirement. Sorry. I put this show together after a 2-hour mimosa, unlimited mimosa thing, and then we got on the plane yesterday. So this show was built en route home. The Rough Riders signed Paxton Lynch. I think this was a big deal. I think the XFL was really trying to get him back. I don't know any. I mean, I put some. If you know more about Paxton Lynch, but that was the highlight was Mark Perry and them were like, they tried that him be an XFL guy back in 2019.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch is kind of like the Broncos drafted him, and the Broncos have been constantly searching for that the next Elway. It's really hard to find that guy that's going to lead your team as a franchise quarterback for years and years and years and years. Green Bay is lucky to have done it twice now with Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and a lot of the Broncos execs thought Paxton was the guy. He's clearly not the guy, and he's been bouncing around. Well, congratulations to him to getting a shot in the CFL. It's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts to the game, because the NFL and college football is much different in terms of formations and movement before the snap and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Paxton does up there.
Can you believe it's July 1st and we still don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Packers in September?
Pretty sure he's not, but we'll see.
Do you know anything? Matt Lyons wrote about this for NewsHub. Obviously, Josh Davis is coming up with NewsHub to do ELF. They were going to do this NFL-CFL officiating exchange, but obviously with COVID and all that, they're not going to do it. But it was interesting because they're trying to get like CFL refs more experience, just because of like there's a lot less games and opportunities, so they're trying to bounce the refs back and forth. Anyway, they're not going to know if they're going to continue. But I just thought that was interesting that sharing referees. I don't know.
interesting enough that I'm hoping that, the sharing referees is training only, and we don't have the situation where we had the replacement referees that one year. That was a nightmare. So coming up, Tim Baines going to join Reed here solo to talk about the REDBLACKS and other CFL stuff. That's after this.
Well, Tim Baines, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. I see you have a Stone Cold Steve Austin. Is that a cutout over your shoulder? First and foremost,
no, it's the real thing. Like it's really Stone Cold Steve Austin in my office, but gonna lay some whoop ass on me.
Yeah, what is going on? Are you a big WWE fan?
I used to write a wrestling column back in the day, so I think I'm more of an AEW fan actually now.
I think a lot of people are more AEW fans now. That we should have you back on for before all this CFL stuff came about. Paul and I used to do a lot of wrestling talk at the end of our podcast when the XFL chatter was a little slow. So maybe we'll have to do another WWE segment or an AEW.
Yeah, I know a bit about it. I mean, I was more of an Attitude Era guy. The Rock and Stone Cold were my guys, and it's funny enough, The Rock and the XFL here, it's like we've come full circle. But yeah.
And I definitely want to get your thoughts on the XFL stuff too. First and foremost, what are you tackling today? What is on your radar? I have a whole show Paul and I are going to do. What are you interested in Tim Baines' world? What are we worried about today?
Well, today's Canada Day, being Canadian. So what's up for me? I think I'll take the day off, maybe do the very Canadian thing, and maybe I'll crack a Canadian beer or two and celebrate. July 1st, our big day. So we'll just go with that. And actually, I'm on holidays anyway. I'm trying to finish up vacation time before July 11th, which will be the first day of the Ottawa REDBLACKS training camp. And then it's full steam ahead right from there until the Grey Cup.
Yeah, I tweeted this morning, today is actually my birthday. And I said, so now this is another thing that the XFL fans can co-opt from the CFL fans. This is also the Markcast birthday. What biggest news this week? We have a lot of stuff with obviously the vaccinations and all of that, the protocol and things. Obviously the player retirements. We talked about Jalen Saunders on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Brad Sinopoli. I mean, what is the highlight for you in terms of things we should be focusing on as it's related to the CFL?
I think the big thing you'll see happening, and we've seen happening over the past week or two, are player retirements. And I don't think it's necessarily because the players are fed up with football. And it's not even necessarily because they've been asked to take pay cuts and because they're getting paid for a 14-game season instead of an 18-game season. I think a lot of it has to do with the COVID protocols and the things that they're being asked to do, and really stay amongst themselves. And maybe they can bring a wife in, but maybe you can't bring a girlfriend, and maybe you can't bring family. And it's overwhelming for a lot of players and who are looking at it and going, is it really worth it? And I don't think retirement, quote unquote, retirement in the CFL isn't necessarily retirement. Doesn't mean you've hung up the cleats. I would expect some of these guys would come back, maybe even this season. But for some of them, it's just a little bit much. The ask of them, again, under different circumstances, under a pandemic, in the middle of a pandemic, really, unlike the NFL, which is clearly distinguishing between what a vaccinated player can do and what non-vaccinated players can do, the CFL really hasn't distinguished between the two. So for a lot of players who've gone out and gotten their 2 shots, I think that's extremely frustrating. They would like to be treated. I think they would like to have more access. At least for now, the CFL is not going to. I don't even think they're even allowed to ask the players, or the players don't have to answer if they've had the vaccines or not. So really a different situation up here.
Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, we were out of town this week in Vegas, totally open here in Washington, which was probably one of the most strict, states with our governor and everything. We're fully open as of yesterday, June 30th. And so it is incredibly challenging for a lot of these players to be going north of the border now. And it's like, wait, what? I mean, were we expecting it to be this? Have you heard from players and things? Is this as much a surprise to them as it is or should be?
Well, I think it's probably surprising if you're coming from an environment that's completely open. We're Canadian. We're cautious. I mean, I'm in Ontario, and we're in different stages. We've just come out of basically stage one, which was well, first of all, we came out of a lockdown. Stage one allowed restaurants and bars to open, but with restrictions. We're still being asked to wear masks indoors. If I go into a supermarket, I have to wear a mask. And anywhere, if I go into a restaurant, I have to wear a mask. Now, it's opening up a bit where I can go on a patio and I can actually sit at a table with 6 people. As we get into the next stage, which should happen in the next couple of weeks, really, it's all leading towards it's a province by province thing in Canada. Different restrictions. It's being treated differently. The Calgary Stampeders and Edmonton Eskimo, it wouldn't surprise me if by August or September they've got a full stadium. Is it more like the States?
When it comes to, we've seen a lot of people wanting to distinguish, right, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, where the NFL's got God knows what money and resources and stuff. Is it too hard for the CFL to make that delineation? It's like, we just got to have everybody under one roof. It's too hard. Is that kind of what's going on?
Well, I think it is. That's part of it for sure. I think they're really at the mercy. The league is really at the mercy of health officials. That's who's laying down the law. It's not that the league necessarily wants to do all this thing. Health officials are telling them this is what you got to do. So, and that differs from province to province. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I would expect. I don't think the league would have okayed a schedule if they didn't expect to have at least some fans in every stadium. Certainly, the province I live in with 3, I'm counting 3 CFL teams. Hamilton, Toronto, and Ottawa probably will be the last to come around. And when they host their first game here in August, at the end of August, I mean, hopefully they can put 10,000 fans in the stands, which may be a little bit optimistic. Hopefully by September, October, they have a little more leeway. It's frustrating, I'm sure, for the owners, who obviously want to try and get recoup some of the money they lost last year without a season.
We obviously touched on the player retirements last week. Brad Sinopoli, Jalen Saunders. They're putting him off for the year, right, because of the injuries and everything. Were these as shocking to you as it seemed? I mean, I just saw that go like wildfire everywhere. That it finally felt like it hit home to fans that some of these players that we love might not be back next year.
I think with Jalen, I mean, it was not so much a circumstance of COVID; it was a circumstance of he was in a car accident and physically unable to be in training camp. He's a guy that I would actually expect to see before the season is over. It's kind of a procedural thing. It's a paperwork thing. The Ottawa REDBLACKS don't want to carry them on their roster as an injured player and pay him for the first, let's say, 3 months. But he's a guy that I think they'd like to keep on their radar. A guy who would certainly help their really largely unproven receiving core, and a guy. And I don't know. I have not spoken to Jalen. But I would expect that if he heals up and is good to go, a guy we could expect to see maybe by midseason. With Brad Sinopoli, different circumstances. Certainly a proven player, multi-time 1,000-yard receiver, a big loss. And should we have seen it coming? I mean, he was back and forth. I think had the season happened last year, he was back and forth and playing. He's a father of a newborn at the time, and there are decisions that you got to make sometimes. What's more important? And I think at this point he just figured it was time for him to move on and try something new. And he's going to remain with the club as an ambassador, but it's not the same as being an ambassador is not the same as gobbling up 1,000 yards in pass catches. So really, it puts them in a tough situation where, at least on paper, they've certainly got the most unproven receiving core in the Canadian Football League. You look around the league and there are a lot of really good receivers. And with Ottawa, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of training camp, because there are certainly jobs up for grabs.
How excited are you to get back into, and I have to imagine that the protocols with covering training camps and things, but how excited is someone that covers the league for as many years to actually get back to like talking about football again?
It's exciting. I mean, through the whole thing, I've tried to sort of keep in touch with it and still write about players and what they're doing away from the game, but extremely exciting. I mean, when this is what you do, when this is really occupies me in a normal season. On a daily basis, it's what I do from May until the end of the Grey Cup, and then even beyond. So it was last year extremely frustrating from a writer standpoint. I had to. It puts a certain pressure on me to find things outside of football. So it's great when you get to go to the stadium every day and here are the stories in front of you. I just have to find a couple things to write about. Certainly much easier. And I miss the game. I've been a Canadian Football League fan way back into my teens, going to games in Toronto. When Toronto actually drew fans, when there were 40,000 people in the stands. So I really have missed the game. From a reporter standpoint, it'll be different because it looks like we're maybe looking at Zoom access to begin the season, which is frustrating, I guess, when I think about wondering about how unsafe it could be to actually be 6 feet away from a player outside on a football field. But I'm going to go by the rules, and if I have to talk to them by Zoom, then so be it. And I'm looking forward to August the 5th. And let's get this thing going. I'm just looking forward to seeing this league doing what it does, which is provide an exciting brand of football.
How do you feel like the Red Blacks are looking this year so far? I mean, obviously we got to get through cuts and stuff and into training camp, but just, like you said, losing some of that receiving core, and it did seem to us like that, because a lot of our listeners are obviously American, but, with the Sinopoli retirement, that seemed like a big contract, right? It seemed like a big player. We hear these, okay, the guys get 50, 60,000. I think Justin Dunk reported the $160,000 contract, right? How are they looking this year kind of with all the turmoil going on?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I think at least on paper, their defense could be better. But when we're looking at a 2019 season where they won 3 games, so the defense sure as hell better be a lot better, and your offense better be a lot better. Is the offense better? I don't know. They had they really put all their faith in Dominique Davis back in 2019. It didn't work out. Nick Arbuckle was going to be the quarterback had they played last year. So we've never really even gotten a look at him. Now we're getting better in Matt Nichols in here, a guy who's been around the league, had some success in Winnipeg. Big advantage, knows the system that head coach Paul LaPolice, also the team's offensive coordinator, is bringing in. Big advantage there. But who's he going to throw to? Who's he going to hand the ball off to? Again, a lot of unknowns. And when you look around, they've got to come out of the East Division. And I look around Hamilton, which went to the Grey Cup, it looks much the same as it did then. They're going to be strong. Toronto's made a lot of improvements. As we're talking, they may have signed a couple more players because it just seems like more star players are signing every day. Montreal is going to be good, I think. So I don't know how Ottawa. Again, it's a new coaching staff, new defensive coordinator, Paul LaPolice calling the plays on offense as well. Maybe that makes a difference. Maybe with that, with new coaching in place, it's a breath of fresh air. But it's going to be really tough for them. 14-game season. I think the over/under on them is 4 games, which won't be good. If you win 4 games out of 14, that's not good. I got to think their hopes are certainly higher than that. But it's okay. Let's see what you can do. We really don't know because new coaching staff, a lot of new players, and right now, at least on paper, they're the 4th best team in the East, which is not good.
Yeah, that you bring up, the carryover from 19. I see, and we're putting prop bets now. Who's going to win? Who's going to be the MOP or whatever. I mean, it's been so long, right? So many changes, both front office and behind. On all of these teams. It's just interesting. It feels like it's been a lifetime, right? Hasn't it? Since everyone's taken the field, right? It's been 16, 17 months now. I mean, how hard is it to hedge these things going now into the next season where so much time has been off?
Well, I'm not getting any younger either. Thank God football came back. I'd hate to go into retirement. Who knows how long that's away, but it does seem like so long ago. I couldn't tell you. Well, actually, I looked it up a while ago. Their last football game, I'm trying to think. I knew they lost their last game, but how much did they lose it by? And who'd they lose it to? So it has been a long time, and it's just so good, not only from an Ottawa Redblacks perspective, but to think that, and we talk about Grey Cups being played because Canada gets cold in November, much like the northeast of the U.S. And we're going to be playing a Grey Cup getting towards the middle of December. So it's going to be really interesting, but I guess we're Canadian. Like, just throw on a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and go on out in that 20 below weather.
Were there any big, I've said on the podcast, I'm not the biggest schedule guy when it comes to NFL, CFL. It's really hard for me to look at stuff and find good matchups and stuff. Anything that struck you from the CFL schedule release last week? We had Jim Mullen on, talked about, some teams are playing 4 games, against each other. Some teams aren't playing at all. Anything that struck you for weird scheduling stuff?
Well, the weird thing from an Ottawa perspective is that they don't play the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You play every other team in the league. And like you say, they're playing teams 4 times, but there's a rivalry there. You've got Matt Nichols, the former quarterback of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You've got their former offensive coordinator, now Ottawa's head coach. I mean, there's got to be some kind of rivalry there. And I saw the schedule and it seemed really odd, but I didn't criticize it because, hey, it's a schedule. We're going to play 14 games and we're going to play playoffs in a Grey Cup. I don't care if we play the same team 14 times. I don't care. Just get us to the Grey Cup and let's get through this season. Let's all get vaccinated and then let's think about a normal 2021 season. Well, hopefully normal, but it really didn't concern me who they were playing. Let's just get this thing on the road and get the season done and let's play football, because last year was horrible. There was miscalculations by the league. We're going to the government with our with hat in hand looking for handouts, and then when it seemed like we get the okay, we're going to have a bubble, we're going to have a season, and then the owners torpedo it. So just extremely frustrating, I think, from a player standpoint, certainly from a media standpoint. A lot of organizations were really disappointed, and the fans felt incredibly let down. And for some of them, I don't know, maybe you've lost some CFL fans over it, or maybe that passion that we had before this whole thing started, maybe that it just reinvigorates it, and maybe we're so much looking forward to that football that it's it's just like, wow, I can't believe how much I miss this. I can't believe how much I really, really love the CFL.
Yeah, I do think it's this was right on the edge, right, of if they hadn't gone again. How worried were you leading up to the vote the last couple weeks, months, trying to figure out, are we going ahead this year? Really, how, you seem kind of like a straight shooter. How worried were you?
You always got to hope that common sense wins out, but really, you've got to have 9 teams on board with it. And through this whole thing, there are at least 1 or 2 teams that weren't necessarily on board. So until you actually hear word from the commissioner that, yes, we're going to play a season and we're going to release a schedule in a couple of days, until you hear that word, there's always a little skepticism. And because you've got, again, it's not like you just need a majority of owners to say we're going to play a season. You've got ownership groups, Toronto being one of them. You've got at least 2 ownership groups in the league that were pushing back. So until you get, yeah, for sure, you're thinking common sense says we play a season, and if we have to, we will play without fans to begin the season. There were teams that would have started without fans, but there were teams that were definitely a no-go on that. So that's the frustration as well of different ownership groups that just want to play football. They want to get back out in the field. And you've got pushback from other ownership groups saying, well, wait a second, if we're not going to put fans in the stands, we're not playing.
Well, and that was the thing. We saw, I think it was the REDBLACKS owner or GM, came out. He's like, we're going, fans, no fans. I remember statements coming out where it seemed like, yeah, the management with Ottawa, was gung-ho kind of regardless, right? So it is frustrating when you have some that are maybe a little more transparent and open, and that could possibly be them trying to spin stuff too. Like, hey, we want to make sure that people know it's not us, right? But it does seem like they were more gung-ho than some.
Yeah, there's no question. Ottawa and Hamilton in particular in the East, and certainly Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and Edmonton, and BC. I'm going to try and leave out the teams that were against playing football without fans. But anyway, you get the idea that there were certainly some teams that were like, well, no, we got to start. We got to play football.
Before we let you go, hot takes on single game sports betting. Thoughts about, is this the lifeblood of the CFL? We've been talking about this for weeks on here.
For sure. I mean, it's not a bad thing. How can it be a bad thing? If you figure out a way to certainly to monetize that, from if you're the league and you figure out a way to monetize it, but they got to put some time into it. Like, you just don't say, "Oh, we've got this bill has passed, we can do it." Like, let's spend some time on it, figure it out, because it is a great source of revenue. If you monetize it, like, will it fix all the woes of the league? No, but it's another source of revenue. And I don't know, can you put a booth in it? Can you put a booth at your stadium where people can do prop betting? There are a lot of possibilities, I think, that it opens up. And certainly it's something I think that's long overdue.
My big question to everybody is always, do we believe, again, listeners have told us, CFL fans, the league struggles with marketing, but yet now this league is going to be able to revolutionize single game sports betting right overnight. I mean, that's where we struggle with it, is the same people that are telling us one thing. Do you share any of those concerns?
Well, for sure. I mean, you're right. If you can't, I think it's a manpower thing. Like, you talk about marketing the league. I don't think they've ever really properly figured out how to do it. But, how are you going to revolutionize this single game betting? I don't know. I mean, I really, really hope they do, because certainly if each team can pull in $1 million or $2 million extra a year, I don't know, that fixes a lot of your problems, I think. There are certainly some fixes that need to be made, but let's hope that the league pushes forward, and whether it's with some kind of merger or affiliation with a league south of the border, I mean, we'll see. But they're going to go out on their own this year, and looking forward to it.
From whence we started, that's where we're going to end up here. Obviously we started with talking with AEW, but obviously, I hate to lead with all of that now, but since we have all these great minds on, I do always want to get everyone's takes on the XFL stuff, reactions to when all that came out, and kind of thoughts now that obviously we've lived with this now. It's July 1st.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the first thing that came to my mind, I'm intrigued by it. XFL 1 definitely didn't work under that huge Vince McMahon umbrella. XFL 2 might have survived. Certainly they had some footing. And what will the next incarnation look like? Will it involve CFL, and will there be a CFL involvement? I mean, there are some diehard CFL fans who've been fans for a long time, are dead set against any rule changes. We've got a lot of things in the CFL, I think, that are unique to our game, and make it. It's not the NFL, and the NFL is the NFL. We love the NFL, but that's what's wonderful about the CFL. It's not the NFL. It's something different with its own distinct character. And if we're going to join with another league, then you want to keep some of that character. And there are certain things about the CFL game that don't lend themselves to the XFL. I mean, the field thing is a problem, though. The wider field, the longer field in the CFL doesn't lend itself really to existing facilities. Can you convince a majority? Can you convince a lot of American fans that 3-down football is more exciting than 4-down football? I'd certainly make the argument that in a lot of ways it is. It's not being negative against the NFL. I love to watch an NFL game, but when you've got a game where 40 passes are being thrown, and the score can be 42-35 or 42, whatever. The scoring's higher, a lot more passing. It's a dynamic game, and it's funny. The NFL has borrowed some of its concepts from the CFL. It's a great game, so I'm not against some kind of affiliation. I don't know what form it will take, whether it's direct competition against American teams. I'm not against it. I think we have to be open to all ideas. If it means that our league, our great Canadian Football League, is not going to be able to exist because you've got some owners, you can't just say, well, okay, Toronto not drawing fans, BC's not drawing fans, then just let them bow out of the league. It's not that simple when you're in Canada. You can't lose two of your biggest markets. You can't lose Toronto in terms of a TV contract, despite the fact they don't draw a lot of fans. They get great TV numbers. And so TSN, the national provider, is not going to be as interested in showing games if you don't have a Toronto Argonauts in the league and a BC Lions. So we got to find a solution that includes our 9 teams and hopefully expands in post-pandemic days. Hopefully we can expand the league and go coast to coast and bring in a Halifax or a team from the East Coast. And hopefully it becomes a 10-team league, and who knows from there. But if we're looking at a merger or some kind of involvement with the XFL, I think we have to be open to it for sure. And as CFL fans, we've got to keep an open mind, because if it's that or nothing, then I choose that.
Are you, last question, and we obviously, Rod Peterson was on. I had just reposted the interview, but he was on a couple weeks ago. Are you as surprised with this, the vehement, and I know it's that small vocal majority, but or minority, but just of how protective and opposed many CFL fans, it feels like many were to any idea of any sort of any changes at all with what's going on? Does that surprise you or not?
I don't think I'm surprised. I don't think, I don't know, that may be overstating the opposition. Is there opposition? For sure there is. There's going to be opposition to whatever you do. If you want a division realignment, whatever you want, there's going to be opposition. Again, if we're faced with the possibility, if it's like this, or there's not going to be a league, then I think you're going to have more people on board. Will there be people that are totally disgusted if they walk away? And when they were talking about a merger, 4-down football was completely top of mind. I mean, that's certainly in the discussion. So if there is some kind of merger, there's a very real chance that this becomes 4-down football. And there will be opposition. There will be opposition to that. But can you get through that? Well, money talks. And if you're involved with a Dwayne Johnson league, and a league that Dwayne Johnson's involved with, if you've got TV money coming your way, that's going to be hard for the CFL to turn away from, because I think you've got owners that are desperate to try and make things work on a balance sheet. And if you're going to throw a lot of money at them, I think some of them are going to be on board with it. And you won't take all your fans with you, but I think if you're a true CFL fan, I don't know how you turn away from the league. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen these next few months. And the CFL is committed to play now until December. It would be tough to imagine that anything, if you're going to have a merger, that anything happens in 2022. So it'll be interesting. I think these next, getting towards the end of the year, will be really telling on what happens if, and maybe the league, maybe the involvement with, maybe the CFL-XFL involvement isn't a merger. Maybe it's something else. And they're keeping us in the dark. So we haven't got guys walking around telling us what they're talking about, which may be not a bad thing.
I'll say this as many times as I can. I do place a lot of the 4-down is going to take over the CFL blame on Gene Jones's shoulders and some of those preliminary interviews that he did. I till the day I die, I will put a lot of the blame and the hostility that we faced on his shoulders. Tim Baines, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your holiday with us. I hope you go crack open a wonderful beer and enjoy, but I really appreciate the chat. I feel like this is kind of the mishmash of episodes. There's a ton of stuff going on, so I appreciate you bouncing around and tackling all the different stuff.
I appreciate having me on, and of course we appreciate the support south of the border. We think we have a special game, and man, we love the fact that we've got support and that people down there care.
Yeah, we're doing it. We call it, we're doing the Lord's work, and we're working through. And I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Then we'll talk, and one time we'll talk AEW, WWE, Impact, whatever you want to talk about.
Impact, yeah. I lived through the Monday Night Wars. That was the 2 weeks when Impact moved and Bret Hart and all that crazy.
Well, crazy times in wrestling, and I just find, to be honest with you, I find it so predictable. I mean, it's like you turn it on and it's just bad soap opera. I mean, I can't even watch Raw anymore. I can't. I can watch NXT. NXT is a good program. AEW is a good program, but I can't watch Raw. SmackDown's okay. So, but I used to, every Monday night Raw, it was like that was must see for me. Not, yeah, man, I'll record it and I'll watch bits of it, but fast forward. then AEW back to Wednesday nights. I'll stick with AEW and NXT.
We're going to have Greg Parks on in a couple weeks. He writes for PW Torch, and maybe we'll get into some wrestling. I'll send you the link when maybe we'll talk a little shop on there. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy your day. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Support for the Markcast brought to you by Manscaped. They're the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Of course, they've just launched their 4th-generation trimmer. It's the Lawnmower 4.0. You can join over 2 million men, including Reed and myself, Will Purvis over at Wheelhouse, that trust Manscaped to, for the jewels, for the tools for your jewels. We got this exclusive offer for you, 20% off free worldwide shipping with the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. Look, this thing is sleek. It's awesome. It's great. I don't know if Reed, did you manscape before you went to Vegas? Did you take it with you?
Hanging out poolside, got to make sure you're all cleaned up. I mean, I do what I needed to do. I mean, you can't just be all willy-nilly. We're coming out from COVID. You're going back out in public. It's time to get your stuff in order.
Yeah, get all of it in order with this Lawnmower 4.0. They've got other great things like they've got a straight razor that you can shave your face with. My cousin actually was like, "You should try that." No, I'm not going to try that down there. But they have a lot of men's grooming items at manscaped.com. And again, I say men's grooming, but ladies, this trimmer is so sleek and so comfortable. It won't nick you. You can use it on yourself. Of course, you should buy yourself one. And you could do that with the code MARKCAST, 20% off, free shipping with the code MARKCAST at manscaped.com. There it is. Reed's pointing it out. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code MARKCAST. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
And for God's sake, do some self-care before you get some self-care, right?
Wow, you're stealing Wheelhouse stuff. Welcome back. Thanks to Tim Baines for dropping in, chatting with Reed and his broken tooth. He's powering through for you. So I want to thank Reed for that.
Do you see my wonderful arrival? I was gone, but I just put it on my new official Markcast t-shirt. This isn't even a plug.
I noticed that. I noticed when I got the notification on my phone. I have some weird app that tells me when anything that you guys order on our website, you basically. I want to point out this too. I do want to point this out.
themarkcast.com/merch if you want to get your Markcast merch.
There was a point in time where Reed used to make fun of Will Purvis buying all the Wheelhouse merch. Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out that you're the one buying all the Markcast merch. Well, so we would like more people to buy Markcast merch.
Yeah, well, because we have our wonderful Manscaped sponsored us, thank you, Manscaped. I'm sure we did the ad plug before, now you're seeing us again. I had the Manscaped shirt and I thought, man, this is so great. But, I don't, because it's a nice lightweight. I can wear it on the podcast, but I thought I needed to get a Markcast one. And I had my Edmonton hat on, but I didn't want to offend Tim, with the REDBLACKS, so I put on I've tried to be neutral. So
very, very classy of you to say the least. Moving on now, Mike Mitchell on the drive confirms likely 2023 start for the XFL. Different league, different vision, keeping cities, maybe changing venues.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big a deal this is. Mike did a big sit down with the drive. Mark's off this week. Mark's partying down in Florida with NewsHub. So they just kind of aired this interview with Mike. I did listen to it last night. It's a lot of the same stuff. Again, I had a lot of people tell me, okay, if the XFL hasn't announced anything by July 1st, we know it's not happening. Okay, then it's not happening. I also heard a lot of people like, well, it's not by August 1st, then we'll definitely know it's not 2022. Well, either way you do it, Mike, obviously likely 2023. But yeah, I did think my fear is this. We've had all these XFL fans clinging to this 5-week XFL, right? Like, okay, this is the greatest thing in the world, all this stuff. If the XFL comes back and does some weird stuff that maybe they don't like, I am very curious to see what all these, we make fun of the CFL homers. I'm really excited to see what happens with all these XFL homers if they come back and they're like, we're not in St. Louis anymore, spoiler or something,
I'm telling you right now, CFL homers, if the XFL homers act out of line, we're going to check them too.
100%.
Same energy no matter what.
Yeah.
Same energy about no matter what.
100%. I believe me. But I have a feeling that when the XFL comes back, it is going to look very different than what we thought. And I am very, very excited to see what happens.
Moving on, talking about the potential merger that might offend some people. Doug Flutie fears Canadian football uniqueness could be lost if 3-down league partners with the XFL. He says, I see bringing in those names to engage the younger fan. You hear those names involved. You hear The Rock involved. You hear Drake involved. Yeah, they love that. They'd love to be a part of it. And then you got a good financial backing that can support it for a while and grow the game. His fear is the loss of the uniqueness of it, the 3-down football, the field, and all of that. He doesn't want Canadian teams to end up turning into playing American football. He'd love to see it the way it is.
I think I'm like, Doug Flutie, aren't you a USFL? Aren't you the front person for the USFL? Like, what are you doing on here? Why are you talking about the XFL? I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, true. And that might be the ulterior motive here is that, maybe the USFL might start thinking about a 3-down idea in wider fields. The plot thickens.
That would be incredible.
Redbird Capital, they got their hands in everything. They're buying a 15% stake in the Rajasthan Royals, founding club of the Indian Premier League of the 2020 cricket. They're into cricket now. Redbird's into cricket. That's what we're saying.
Taking over the world, man. This was sent over, but they're continuing to expand. Anyway, that was sent to me by our big, Max and all of our Redbirdy followers. But yeah, they're continuing to expand out the region. Cricket's huge. I mean, cricket in Australia and India. I mean, cricket's like the biggest thing in the world.
It's insane. Like, I mean, I think that more people in India and Australia watch cricket than they watch soccer.
Well, I was going to ask, worldwide, what do you think is a bigger sport, India or cricket or soccer?
The soccer worldwide is way bigger. Okay. Because, I mean, more people watch soccer worldwide than they watch cricket. Like, we watch soccer in America here kind of, sort of now. I mean, MLS is starting to move. They're getting a ton of franchises. And we watch more soccer here. We're not just watching when the men play in the World Cup. We're watching, because the men don't always play in the World Cup. We're watching also when the women play in the World Cup. There's a big one of those, I guess, renaissance moments for American soccer. So I think I think soccer worldwide is, no one in Mexico is watching cricket either, and soccer's big down there. So, going to take it to the break. We're going to toss it back over to Reed doing solo interviews. Talking to Will from Argos Fancast, and then Josh Davis is going to come on with some ELF coverage. That's after this.
Well, we have Will here from the Argos Fancast. Thank you so much. I was on with your cohort earlier this year talking XFL stuff, and I'm so glad that you could return the favor and come on today. How are you doing so far?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
We're good. It's a happy Canada Day there. It's also my birthday, and so I joked that that's now another
birthday.
That's another thing that the XFL can now take over as the Canada Day. No, so I guess first off, we're heading into the season now. We're getting close to training camp. What are some big things that you're watching or keeping an eye on that you're interested in and that you guys are talking about on your podcast?
Right now, we were just going through sort of what we think, how the roster is going to shape up. I mean, the Argos have been more active than any other team in the CFL, I would say, by far this offseason. A lot of people are kind of taking the view of how the hell are they doing all of this, right? Like, they're signing all these guys who people are associating with, having this, or should be having a significant enough salary that people don't know how they're fitting this all under the cap. So we do have a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of positional battles going on, but we have a lot of new faces to sort out and see how they fit in with this team. And, as I imagine, the Argos have been the worst team in the league the last 2 seasons. So turnover is a good thing in this case.
Yeah, I keep seeing signings. I see a lot of memes of like, okay, you're done signing people now, right? You're really done. I mean, what is that? I hear that that's kind of how management there operates, right? Like bring in everybody and then just cut all the dead weight. Is that kind of how they operate there?
I wouldn't say. Keeping in mind they have a new general manager, or I shouldn't say he's new, but this is going to be technically speaking, Pinball Clements is the general manager in name, but it's believed that John Murphy is handling a lot of the personnel decisions. He did have a reputation of doing this in Saskatchewan when he was there with, I believe, Chris Jones was the head coach. And there was a running joke that they had a practice roster type thing set up. So it's not so much, this is sort of, we've had, I wouldn't say the team hasn't been inactive in free agency before, but this is certainly the first off season where everybody's sort of scratching their head, like, what's going on here? So it is a bit of a new thing in Toronto.
It seems like having Pinball as that face, right, of the franchise. You know, I saw him on Rod Peterson's show a couple weeks ago. I mean, truly has to be an electrifying, right, presence for the fan base there, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's the one Argo who probably transcends the team into Toronto in general. As I'm sure you've learned, Toronto has a lot of challenges in attracting a significant fan base to come to their games. And Pinball, yeah, he gives that sense of, I guess, confidence to the fan base that they are heading in the right direction. I mean, for example, when he became head coach of the Argos 20 years ago, when he retired to become head coach, the team was perhaps at its lowest on the field and off the field. You know, the coach they had hired was a complete disaster, and Pinball did restore a bit of confidence to the fan base to sort of, they didn't make the playoffs that year, but they played much better. They played at a playoff pace for the remainder of that year, and this is his first time in this role, so it remains to be seen whether he will have success. But he had success as a player, he's had success as a person in the community, and he's had success as a head coach. So I'm fairly confident he'll have success as a general manager. And at the same time, yes, he can be the face of the franchise in the market to hopefully get some of the people who are sitting on the side and saying, CFL, and get them into the stands.
There's been a lot of talking about, obviously, the long off season, right? 16, 17 months now. What is the feeling up there from other CFL fans, maybe a little more casual than obviously you and I, that we're approaching the season now? Is there a lot of buzz now that training camps, we're getting there, like it's on the horizon, we're seeing everything?
Yeah, I mean, when it was 2-3 weeks ago when they finally announced that the season was going to go through, I haven't seen Twitter that happy, in 16, 17 months. And I think people are excited for it to start. As maybe you've seen, though, over the last week or so, we've started to see some players retire. And people are trying to speculate what that's about. Some people think it has to maybe do with the whatever rules that the CFL and CFL-PA is going to set out for teams to have to comply with during the season. The Argos have mostly avoided that so far, although there are rumors that 2 players are planning on retiring. Both are linebackers, Canadian linebackers, who will be missed on special teams. But overall, I think people are really excited to get this season underway. As I said, the NFL played, the NBA played, NHL, MLB, they all played. CFL didn't play, and we just want our football back.
What is it like being a fan in Toronto? Obviously we're coming in from the XFL perspective. All we hear is, no one goes to the games, right, in Toronto. It's hard to fill the stands. Here you guys are, leading the charge with the podcast, with the Argos. What is that like, balancing those two things? Is people saying like that, Toronto doesn't even want to be in the CFL?
Yeah, it's hard. Because I feel like the people who don't like the CFL in Toronto, I'll put that, nicely,
mm-hmm.
you read, see they post something about the CFL on TSN or on the TSN Facebook or something like that. You just get all these unsolicited comments about people, people have to let everybody know that they hate the CFL. And, it's not easy. I mean, as I think you may have, CFL used to be really big in Toronto. But at my age, I can count less than 10 people, between elementary and high school who were interested in the CFL, right? Everybody was a big NFL. People like the NFL, and they just dismissed the CFL out of hand. And part of that is self-inflicted by the Argos, but part of it is, the NFL. Once the cable started in the 80s and people got more be able to see it in Toronto, it's hard to say. I mean, I think people I think you've heard this before. People are more interested in playing the New York Yankees than they are the Saskatchewan Roughriders, right? There's no unfortunately, the CFL's lost its marquee in Toronto specifically. And I think there are people, a lot of the fan base for the Argos they're tired of having to, because I think they just don't know what to do anymore about it. I'm not saying the team doesn't. I'm saying the fans are just frustrated. And yeah, I mean, I get frustrated sometimes. It's good football. And I sort of take the approach, it's okay to like more than one football league. And I just think too many people in Toronto don't take that into account.
When you say that some of these wounds are self-inflicted, by the management, by the Argos, what are some of the things that they could have done better in the last, 10, 20 years to not be in this position now?
Well, it goes beyond longer than that. Probably starts when the Toronto Blue Jays came to Toronto. Fact is, the Argos went 30 years without a Grey Cup title. And Blue Jays came sort of towards the end of that drought. A couple of things happened. Once they started winning again in the 80s, the front office cut back on marketing heavily. The Blue Jays, for an expansion team, at least at the time, started to contend more quickly than maybe some of the other expansion teams did. But I think you really go back to the end of the Rocket Ishmael, John Candy, Bruce McNall ownership. You ran into a few things, I think. The Blue Jays won the 2 World Series, drawing 50,000 people to Skydome. Basketball came to Toronto with the Raptors. And I don't discount, it was when the Bills were doing the 4 straight Super Bowl run. So I don't discount that necessarily, because that probably gave people more of an NFL option than they had prior to that, because the Bills were not really good franchise prior to the early 90s. And just overall, I mean, so many ownership changes over the years, owners not choosing to market the team properly. The move to Skydome, while that was started because of the 1982 Grey Cup, there was a rainstorm in the end. Imagine a rainstorm in 2-degree weather, so people were screaming for a dome. But of course, that came at a time when the multi-purpose stadium was coming to an end, and Skydome wasn't a great place for football. So that didn't help either. I mean, they've drawn, decent average attendance, 30,000 at times in there, but in a 50,000 seat stadium, that looked terrible. So, and frankly, the team hasn't been very good over the last decade. They've won 2 Grey Cups, yes, but those were at 9-9 records. And they simply have not been able to put a consistent team on the field.
So what do they do? I mean, obviously, having pinball, right, as this, focal, public persona, I mean, that works. What are some other ideas and things that you feel like they could do to improve, what they're doing now?
Well, first off, it's going to be a long-term fix. It's not going to be fixed overnight. People have suggested a multitude of things. People say, "Oh, they should build a stadium out in the suburbs," but the way Toronto is, if you look at a map of Toronto, there's no ideal place in the suburbs that you could put it without risking alienating people from another part of the suburbs. Whether they reach out to, Toronto is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. And, football is probably the one sport where you talk about soccer, you talk about basketball, even baseball to an extent. People coming from, immigrants, those sports are more likely to be present in their home country than football is. So that's a unique challenge. I know the teams did citizenship. I think they did citizenship ceremonies before the games, which is a good idea. You try to introduce people to the game. I think they haven't done so many cultural nights, I don't think, but that might be an idea. Even someone suggested, that I'm not taking credit for this, but people online have always said, try to take the two college teams in Toronto, try to leverage, a rivalry between those two teams to, conjunction with an Argo game or something like that. The only issue is the two college teams in Toronto don't put much. They don't. U of T and York don't really put a whole lot of investment into their football team, so they're always among the weaker teams in the conference. So it's and just general. They need to somehow get the name Argos out there. People just don't. You pass somebody if you're going to a game, you pass them. Oh, there's a game today.
Yeah,
people just don't know.
Like it or not, right? You and especially Toronto and other CFL teams really at the forefront of all this XFL chatter too, right? Because with MLSE and Toronto and all these things. Thoughts on all this XFL stuff? General thoughts, and then I have a couple other questions about it.
I think you may consensus sort of on our show. We didn't react as negatively to this news as I think you would have seen people on Twitter. And part of that is, yes, because I'm up for looking at any way to improve the business model, improve the future of the CFL. And I think part of the problem the CFL had is you've had Marshall Ferguson on, I think, right?
We had Connor O'Neill, who podcast with him.
Okay. But one of the comments he made on our show was that the CFL did a poor job of sort of setting the parameters of these discussions. So what it did was let everybody on Twitter speculate or overreact to it. I'm sure one of the things you maybe noticed is that Canadians tends to get their back up when they perceive some sort of threat from down south. And that's where sort of the rule things, all the rules start. And I mean, I don't disagree with that part. Part of what makes the CFL unique is its rules. And, but I think people were just assuming, that it was going to be a merger. Whereas they were just talking to see what synergies they could find. I mean, I sort of thought about it along you remember when they used to pretend that the American League and the American League and the National League were, they pretended that they were separate entities, kind of. They never played each. I mean, I suppose it's a bit the rules between American and Canadian football are, I guess, a little more fundamentally different. But I kind of looked at it along those lines.
Separate but equal,
you share resources, but you're not necessarily abandoning one over the other.
It's just
I think it's unfair for people to. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's just it's crazy to me as someone, I mean, we were just getting into this XFL, didn't even have the podcast, they're coming, it was something to do for 10 weeks, right? In my off season, February, March is a great time to watch football. We get into doing this podcast, all the CFL stuff comes out. And in a million years, I never would have expected vehement anger from not all fans, not even the majority, but really vehement. And I think the word that kind of came to mind this week is we posted one of our interviews that was a little more XFL-CFL heavy, and it's a lot of gate checking. I don't know if you know that term, like I'm at the club and I got to check, how many CFL games have you gone to? Like, or people are asking this, or how many BC Lions games have you traveled up for? And you're like, well, that's not the point. You have people now that are trying to cover, get excited, have communications right about your league. And the pushback that we've gotten, it's astounding to me, right? As someone that, where do you, and I get the Canadian protectiveness, right? And you said they get their, backs to the wall, but does it surprise you how angry it feels like it's gotten with some of the fans and things online?
Not really. I think that's kind of how Canadians get when they, as I said, when they perceive something coming down from the South, that's how they get. And I think I'm wondering if some people don't realize how the CFL was doing well, I'd say 5 years ago, but I'm not sure if many people realize how, I wouldn't say it's completely collapsed, but it's not doing well as it was 5 years ago. And, to be honest, also part of it was people are also forgetting that Vince McMahon's no longer associated with the XFL. And that might be part of it. Vince is it's Vince McMahon. The guy is kind of, the people looking, he's only succeeded at one thing, wrestling. And, who knows how much of that was because of, the 6'8" guy from Venice Beach that he found, in Minnesota one day. But I wasn't surprised. People are very protective about the CFL. You're going to have people who, as much as I think my generation doesn't like people who choose one over the other, there is a generation of CFL fans who are CFL only. They'll die on the hill of the third down. They'll die on the hill with the no yards and everything like that. So no, I'm not surprised. But again, it goes back to the CFL not communicating what the parameters of this were clearly. You let people interpret it the way they did, and that probably caused part of the anger.
Do you think, and we certainly have our own thoughts, about this, and we talk offline. Do you think the damage is done because those parameters or communication, what wasn't done? It's been 4 or 5. It's been a long time now that we've been doing this, that we haven't heard anything.
I think people are kind of, right now there's a bit of a honeymoon period because the announcement that the season's going to take place. I'd say there's quite a few people who have sort of forgotten about this announcement. But I think there's been damage done. I think a lot of certainly the perception on Twitter is very much against Randy Ambrosie at this point, as I think you've seen. So I think once we get the season going, once we sort of see how fans are returning to the stands, whether it's an exciting season or not, that may win the CFL back some brownie points. But I imagine, in the off season, we'll hear more, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, because I think they said it's not going to, if anything happens, it's not going to happen for a few years, right? So I think it may stay quiet for the season. Certainly around Grey Cup, it may perk up again, because that's often, a period, the beginning of the off season. So you get a lot of the insiders in the CFL traditionally, during the Grey Cup week, looking for things to, news items to start. So it may spike up again, but I'd say there's going to be a bit of a honeymoon for this season, just because people are excited about having football back.
My last question for you today, and I appreciate all and just openness, where it's like, we're trying to cover this. How do we really feel about it? So I appreciate a lot of your answers. What do you think about Ambrosie as a commissioner, as someone that covers this league?
Well, he's coming off. You got to remember, the commissioner is simply there to act at the behest of the board of governors. He takes his instructions from the owners. I don't think I have the same hostility towards him as other people do. Certainly, a lot of people feel his communication skills are not great. People feel he's a little bit secretive. The league's become a little more secretive. And and certainly under his time, the league is, he's faced a challenge no other commissioner has had, COVID. And, but I'm not sure I necessarily blame him either for any decline that may have been taking place before. So I'm not ready to, I'm fairly new, is a bit of a cop-out answer here, but I'm fairly neutral on the guy. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other.
Yeah, it just seems to me, we had, I think it was Scott Stinson when he came on, and he talked about where, trying to rebuild, Toronto and Montreal and BC. And instead, when Ambrosie came on, and it's, okay, we're going to do the global expansion, right? And now we're going to do whatever this is with the XFL. And it just seems, it resonated with me that, we had this option. We had two forks in the road, and we could either build at home or go expand. And it seemed like we went, the CFL, not we, but, the CFL went in that expansion route, and maybe he needed to shore up some things at home first,
Sure. But I at the same time, any good businessman has to be able to multitask, I suppose. And I always felt like doing one did not preclude the other. The football is starting to become a bit more global. Over the last 10 years, it's certainly, I think you can see it. It's not necessarily huge in any outside of Canada or the US, but you can see it. The NFL's playing games in Mexico, in England, and they've been to Japan yet. I think they played a game. No, I think they played exhibition games in Japan like 20 years ago, but that's how Terrell Davis got noticed by the Broncos in a special teams game there. But I think in that sense, yeah, why wouldn't he try to look at global possibilities? We're obviously not trying to compete with the NFL here, but see if you can't grow the brand of Canadian game. And yeah, BC and Montreal and Toronto do need a lot of fixing, but I don't think any of them are short-term fixes. So he had the option of either trying to do something globally and nothing happening locally, because it was a long-term fix, and then, you're doing nothing. Yeah, so I don't buy that notion. I think the CFL can do two things at once, and I would expect it to be able to do two things at once.
That's a good answer. I appreciate that. We have Will from Argos Fan Podcast and argosfan.com. Thank you so much for taking your time. I really appreciate, giving your candid thoughts on all this stuff.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I figured there was no better way to celebrate my birthday than to talking to one of our longest friends here at XFL NewsHub and CFL NewsHub, Josh Davis. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Happy birthday.
Thank you. So we're talking ELF today. I have a little MLFB I want to talk to you about at the end. What has been your reaction to ELF so far, the European League of Football going on overseas?
Well, it's filling the gap that was left by the Spring League. And you got to, if you want to watch these things, you got to go into it knowing that this is brand new. We're going into week 3. You can't go into it thinking that it's going to be a finished product. The offensive lines were better the second week. First week, the quarterbacks were just running for their lives. It still happened that way in the second week. But that being said, the guys that are supposed to be studs are studs. I mean, we're watching Andre London just take it over 624 yards in 2 weeks and 7 touchdowns. It's incredible. Defenses are playing well, even though there's a lot of high scoring games. You're still seeing plays. Teams is big right now in that league, and everything will come together as the league goes on.
People, obviously have been asking, wanting some coverage of this. Is this a gimmick league? Is this weird rules and stuff? Or this is pretty much American football that people are expecting just in a different country, right?
Yeah, no, this is, they play by the NFL rules. The only thing that they have not implemented as of yet 100% is replay. Everything else is NFL rules. So kickoffs are the same as the NFL, although I'll tell you, you're getting a lot more returns because they're kicking it short. I don't know if that's purposely done. I would assume that the guys over there got good legs. So, I don't know if that's purposely done or what. But, no, NFL rules, there's no gimmicks. It's not like anything that we've seen thus far. Even with the Spring League, you could only rush a certain amount of players. So that's not the case here.
Yeah, I think it's a welcome relief. The Spring League got a little gimmicky with the overtime rules, with the voting, obviously fan control football and all of that. How have you felt? Obviously, you've been covering it for XFL NewsHub, writing articles, live tweeting the games. I've seen all that. What has been the reaction that you've seen from your listeners, readership, whatever, people that follow you?
The biggest thing is the paywall. If we could figure out a way around the paywall, there would be a lot more viewership. But they've got to do what they've got to do over there at the ELF. And but when people are watching the games, they are really happy with what they're seeing because it is a really good product. It's getting better. Like I said before, the offensive lines were not very good week 1. They were a little bit better week 2, but that's something that's to be expected. You've got 5 guys that have never played together. You would assume anyway, maybe a different, a lot of the guys that play for the Panthers have been together and some of those other teams that have, but for the most part, these guys have got to mesh. They've got to gel, and that's going to take some weeks, and it's a brand new league. Everybody's getting their footing. You just stick around. Everybody that I've noticed that has been watching the game seems to be pretty happy with everything that's going on so far.
So how many different teams do we have and where are they located?
Predominantly Germany. There's 8 of them. You've got Germany, Spain, Poland.
Did they have a long ramp up for the season? I know, obviously with the Spring League, it was they hit the ground a week or two at, camps, and then they started. Did these guys have a lot of time yet? Or are they really getting things going on their feet while on the field?
They really only had a couple of weeks to get real ready. I mean, they had the guys that were in country could work out together, but travel restrictions at the time. Not a lot of the American players could get over there and do exactly what they needed to do to get ready. But They only had a few weeks to go. There was a scrimmage or two, but other than that, it was pretty much hitting the ground running.
It's tough. I get what you're saying with the paywall and the ability to watch it. We're also trying to, one of our listeners, I'm sure, Max, whatever, he's sending us like, here's the illegal stream. You can watch it. But it's like, we're trying to support this, right? So, I mean, it's hard because I think so many people are conditioned to like, I turn on TV, Monday Night Football's on. I mean, are we at an age where people are used to watching these games? I know obviously mutual friend Vince with Alt Football Scout, he covers a lot of this stuff too. We're used to watching things online. Is that still too hard for the common man and woman or child to watch these games?
No, I'll tell you, if you do end up paying for it, they've got a bunch of different levels of what you can get. It's well worth it to me. I mean, you get to watch the games is right there. You can get English audio. Sometimes week one, they only had one game per day that was actually called. That was a little weird to watch a game that you didn't have any commentary at all. But it still transitioned well because it was football and you knew the rules going in. If it was something where you didn't know about the rules, but they're playing NFL rules, so it's something that we all can relate to when we watch it. It's a familiar product. They offer so much, even when you just do the game by game, which is only about $5 to get to, and it's right there on their homepage. European League. Football. It's right there on their homepage. You can click on the game, you can click on what audio you want, and it'll come up and it'll immediately, right after the game is over, it'll start showing you the highlights from the game. So even if you got in there a little bit late and didn't see some of the stuff that happened early, they get right into the highlights right after the game. And then they've come up with live, they keep up with live stats going on throughout the game. You can see exactly what's going on. They're getting a little bit better with that. The stats were slow going, and I talked to a couple of guys from there. Christopher Hahn's one of them. A shout out to him that I talked to week one. He said, we're going to be a little slow coming out of the gate with the stats, but as we go on, it's going to be a whole lot easier and a whole lot better and a whole lot faster. So, and I can already tell a difference. They also offer a full game book. Every single thing you want to know about what happened in the game, how many times they ran the ball on third down. That's how deep this stuff goes. Defensive stats, offensive stats, play-by-play, drive-by-drive, whatever you want. It's downloadable. It's a PDF. It's real easy to get to. Everything you missed about the Spring League is right there. The ELF has it.
Is there a large support staff that they have working, doing all these things? I know you've talked to some of the people over there, but I mean, are we aware of how large the team is working on this?
The way that it comes about, though, is there is a lot of people that are in the middle of this trying to get this thing going. I mean, they've probably thrown a whole lot at this to get this right year one, and so far, I think they're being successful, and I think they're only going to be better as it goes. I can't really tell exactly how many people there are working for them. I can tell you they have a lot of media people. Each team is accurately. Represented on social media and online. There's I just mentioned him a minute ago, Han. He was just talking about there are articles every day on the website. So there are a lot of guys putting in a whole lot of work for this to get this thing going.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is we talk about these leagues, Man Control Football, Spring League, XFL, whatever, USFL. It's like you got one shot to make it work, right? We got the big ramp up, all the media stuff. Have they, for being overseas, have they done a good enough job of penetrating? Is America even on their radar, really trying to penetrate into, or are they more focused on the European viewership and then like anything over here is a bonus?
They're really focusing everything in Europe. They are throwing things. Some of the teams will tweet in their language and then we'll throw out another tweet in English saying the same thing, or they'll combine it. They're really focused on getting off the ground there in Europe because, I mean, that's where the tickets are going to be. That's where they can watch it on television. That's where really their viewership is going to be there for the most part. But they're not leaving us in the States, out to dry. They are giving us the English, audio. They have at least one person for these games that is an American voice. It's not somebody so far that's got an accent that we can't understand. These guys are really focused on where they are, but they also know that this is American style football with NFL rules. We've got to pay attention to America as well.
Obviously it's on streaming for us. Is this on traditional TV over in Europe?
They have a couple of different types of contracts with their broadcasting over there, but it is on TV there.
I mean, it feels like, and obviously we're watching from the outside with a little bit of meat given to us, but it does feel like an XFL of sort in Europe, right? I mean, traditional spring football played. Is that is their goal just to literally be that spring football alternative? Are they looking to compete? I mean, it's so weird over there because it's not like they're competing with the NFL. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, the one thing that they are competing with is the NFL is planning to go to Germany. They have these games in England. They don't want any part of that. They're well aware right now that they are not the NFL, and they don't want to be in competition with that because, anybody that tries to do that will lose. They have found their niche. A lot of leagues in Europe play during this time of the year. There's a lot. I can't keep track of how many leagues there are over there right now playing at this moment. Now they're taking they're taking a prime time of the year for them to get out there and play football, and they know that they're being noticed now where they wouldn't be if they were playing in the fall.
They're competing against other traditional football leagues right now, or other like soccer leagues.
No, traditional American football leagues over there. But I'll tell you, the thing that makes the difference is that there's a whole lot more money behind the ELF than there is any of the other leagues. Even the German football league, they're probably number 2 on the list over there. I'm not real sure. Poland has a monster program over there as well. But there's just a lot more that has gone into the ELF, and a lot more. I guess you'd say there's just a lot more media put into it to get more eyes on it, and they have really drawn from the strongest talent over there in Europe.
In terms of the money and influence and things behind it, is there anything notable in terms of that, in terms of ownership or funding?
Not really. I mean, these teams are I feel like that they are owned by the league. At least starting out. I don't know 100% how that's done. I do know that all these teams have taken names from World League of American Football or NFL Europe, however you want to take it, resurrected names that are familiar. Everything is in promotion right now. Like, they're just making sure that they're getting their product in front of as many eyes as possible. And so far they're being successful with that. So.
In terms of the players involved, are we attracting maybe out of the realm American players over there? Is there anyone that the traditional American football fan would know, or are these mostly European grown talent?
Mostly European grown talent with some recognizable names. Darius Robinson is one of the names that has he's played in a few bounced around the NFL a little bit. Madre London is a name that people will recognize from recent if they paid any attention to the Spring League or the FCF, Fan Control Football. He was in both leagues, although he didn't do a whole lot in FCF. That's not his fault. The fans kind of screwed that one up. We're seeing those guys. Darius Robinson is playing special teams. I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter the other day about how important special teams is. He scored 2 touchdowns on special teams, and he's a cornerback. He's also got an interception age return for a touchdown. Madre London, like I said, the running back, he's 624 yards in 2 games with 7 touchdowns. You've got a lot of the quarterbacks, Jacob O'Connor, some of the other guys, Zach Edwards. He's the guy that's from America. So there are some American players with names that you would recognize. There's also some people from the Japanese game in this that you're going to recognize if you paid attention to the Spring League with Omi, my dude there. He's in there, and he's not doing bad. He's got a few catches and a touchdown. So, these guys are, but a lot of the plays are being made by guys that are homegrown talent. because they're already a lot more familiar with what's going on that field. And they're not really having to acclimate to anything over there because it's just natural to them.
Is this something where in a different year when there wasn't such travel restrictions with COVID and everything that maybe they would have attracted more players? I mean, is this a good start? And would you see, potentially this time next year, as opposed to the USFL or whatever here, that players would be traveling over there to go play?
I actually think if we're going to a point in time with less travel restrictions, with less COVID regulations, we may not see as many American players over there. They're going to be competing with leagues that had been taking time off, like the CFL last year, like the XFL. Some of those guys, some of those American guys would be in the XFL this year, no doubt. I've said this before. Everything that's playing this spring right now has got a talent level that we may never see again. You've got guys that played in the NFL on indoor football leagues right now. Indoor football teams right now. You got a guy with the skill set that I keep bringing his name up, but he's just proving, that situation determines success more than talent does. But Madre London, he would not be playing overseas if we had an XFL. Maybe not even if we had anything that stopped guys that came out of school when he did from going to pro days and stuff. He may be in the NFL if he had a better opportunity. If we didn't have COVID, so a lot of these guys could still be over there. But I would say that come next year, depending on how they structure their contracts there, if those guys sign 2-year deals, I would say that once restrictions get going or get taken away and a whole lot less COVID going on, that you may not see as many recognizable American names, but you will see some because there will be opportunity.
But you think because right now there's such a vacuum for places for these players to go, that you think that's why a lot of them have gone over there?
Yeah, there's not that much going on right now. The CFL has not started yet. The spring league was about it for springtime for us right now. We really don't know what's going on exactly with the XFL. We got the USFL coming up next year. So there are a lot more opportunities to play American football in the States. Where it's, viewership is king. We got, just the amount of people that watch football here just outnumbers everybody else. So, most people would want to play here. But there'll be a lot of American players over there. There's always a lot of American players playing in European leagues, not just the ELF.
How is the quarterback play over there? Because I know sometimes when you get these startup leagues like the XFL, it takes a little while, right? Because there's only so many quarterbacks and the teams, and even it's like a drop down from the NFL. What's the quarterback play been like so far in the ELF?
It's real hard to judge at this moment. Guys like Zach Edwards, man, he was running for his life in week 1, but he was slinging it off schedule throws and hitting his target. I would say around week 4 or 5, you'll really be able to understand what these quarterbacks can do, because by then the offensive lines will have meshed. They would have gotten really used to the playbook. You're not seeing a whole lot of issues with guys being real inaccurate. Of course you're going to see it, but quarterback play is not something that is lacking there, because these guys are really being pushed into making plays like they haven't in any other league, like I said, because they've just been running around because they've always got guys in their face. So it's real hard to judge at this point exactly how good the quarterback play is. But so far, there's been a lot of big numbers come out.
In terms of, I'm like rapid firing. Like I got one. In terms of pay, right? Player pay obviously been a big issue with spring league. Fan Control Football didn't pay they paid, but it wasn't the best. How's the compensation for the players over there?
It's a little bit. It's in between Arena League football and the XFL. It's right smack in between. One thing that they definitely don't have to worry about is room and board. They don't have to worry about insurance. The teams pay all that. Travel, actually, they pay that too. But for the players there, it's right smack in the middle between the IFL right now, which is top dog in the Arena Leagues, and what guys are getting paid in the XFL.
But still better than either Spring League or Fan Control Football, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely better than both of those.
And then finally, so we're going into week 3 here, right? This weekend, as we record. How many weeks? What's the schedule like the rest of the season?
The 12-week regular season, each team gets 2 byes.
And then in the traditional playoffs?
Yes.
If you had to sum up and elevator pitch the ELF for someone that was curious about football, I always say, like, what's your 10-second pitch or 15-second? What would be your pitch be for the ELF?
You've never seen anything like it. Like this looks like American football that we know, but there is that little bit of European style behind it. The games, the way that they're played, the way the fans interact is a whole lot like they do at soccer games over in Europe. It's kind of a mess between the two, but it is 100% American football. So you're going to know what you're watching. You don't have to worry about that, just like you would with some of the other leagues that have been coming around here lately. There's NFL rules. It's a good brand of football to watch, and it's a good way to get to be fans of new teams and new players and learn more about how the world plays American football, because there's so much going on around the world that most people don't even know about.
Last question for you today so we talked on the show about MLFB and, obviously the update. We were talking off camera last night about the update they had about the USFL. I know that they had at some point said they were going to play this summer. Now it looks like they're eyeing spring next year. Am I reading that right? Any updates on Major League Football?
It's looking like 2022, but the official word is that they have not shut the door on 2021. There still could be a 4-team demo league, demo season go on. Yeah. I'm hoping so because, I'll keep that part private, but I'm hoping that it comes about this year. But that's the official, unofficial story is they've not completely shut the door on a 2021 season. This USFL announcement's kind of smacked them in the face a little bit, and that's why that statement came out the way that it did.
Why? It took them by shock?
Yeah, they really weren't looking for that to happen. A lot of guys that they might have been eyeing as coaches or players would potentially turn them down because they wanted to play in the USFL.
I keep hearing this. They're playing summer. I'm like, okay, it's July. Like it's July 1st right now. Like, it's the same thing, and I know we talk a lot about that with the XFL people. They're like, well, come July, I'll know for sure. Or come August. I'm like, okay, well, we're July now. So at some point, when is that cutoff going to be for when it's actually feasible to get a football league going?
I'd say we're weeks away from there's got to be something solid. I'm talking about they better already be doing a whole lot more than what I know, and I talk to the CEO often. So we are weeks away from knowing whether or not this thing is going. Because if they don't make an announcement in the next couple of weeks, there's just no way for them to get even a 4-team demo off the ground and going. By the time the NFL starts. And that's not what they're wanting to do. They don't want to be opposite the NFL at all. Yeah,
and you're referring to MLFB, but the exact same thing could be said about the XFL, where and we both know, but this is, I mean, we're talking hours here where they would need to decide by, where you just get to a point where there's just simply not enough time. I mean, look how long the ELF did their rollout, over the last year. I mean, there gets to be a point where we're at a finite amount of time that we have to do something that just can't be done. So. Any other? This is great. Any other hot takes? Anything else that we didn't ask you about? I appreciate you with my barrage of ELF questions.
Hey, no problem. It's a brand new league. It's exciting. I'm excited to see some guys that it's proving my point. I've been saying for a long time. I know you've heard me say it. Plenty of people have. Everybody who's read what I've written or follows me on Twitter, you know that I'm about this worldwide talent, this global talent that we have out there in American football. And it's proven my point. There are so many talented guys over there. And I mentioned some American players, but you've got to really watch these games and get to know some of these guys because there's no reason except for maybe just the opportunity. I said it earlier, situations determine success more than talent does, and situations are slim in the NFL. So, and a lot of times they're dictated by who you know and not how good you are. So, I said it to somebody earlier this year. If it wasn't for Sean Payton being the offensive coordinator in Dallas, we wouldn't know who Tony Romo is. But they went to the same college, and that's why Romo was signed in Dallas. So, we wouldn't even know who Tony Romo was if it wasn't for that situation. So, you've got guys over there that have been playing this game their whole lives, and a lot of people here in the States don't know about how long they've been playing American football around the world. And this is a very, very good way. And the production level is high. It is very good, very well put out by the ELF. You won't be disappointed by what the product is on the field. I promise you that if you check it out. It's worth the $5. It's worth the 117 for the whole season and the whole get up. It's worth it. To sit here and be able to even stream it on your computer or whatever device, it's worth putting in the money to watch these guys because this is really, really good football, and this league should be around for a long time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I understand and subscriptions and finances and stuff, but you got to pick something and ride with it. And if you want to support football, if you want to have football, I mean, to me, $120, whatever it is, no brainer. If that's something that you're into, obviously Fan Control Football was Twitch ad supported, but I just think at some point you go to a movie and get popcorn, it's $50. I mean, what are we debating here versus getting the whole season of football? So, Josh, really appreciate it. I'm going to put this interview really late in the show, and we'll get you to listen to the whole episode this week. And I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Welcome back. Thanks for all our guests joining us. Will, Josh, and of course, Tim. Tim, right? Yeah.
Yep, Tim Baines.
You sometimes you delete people's names out of here, and I'm like, oh wait, I kind of want that to, my short-term memory's messed up, and my ears are, Anyway, we're gonna move on. USFL news.
Now, I don't want to get in trouble for this because we've seen some stuff happen lately with LinkedIn, like news and XFL stuff, but this is the official USFL LinkedIn account. This is their official account. They have a new bio on there, and they're talking about, the USFL. They're going to develop, keep the dream alive for players preparing for the NFL, whatever. But this was interesting. I bolded this. He goes, I assume Brian Woods, wrote all this on the, right? Don't you assume that Brian Woods updates the USFL LinkedIn page? I assume that he's in charge of that. He says, although we are excited about kicking off the league as soon as possible, we will not do so until full capitalization is in place to secure long-term sustainability and assure the payment of all compensation and all other expenses. We have been working for more than a year, ironing out the wrinkles and putting in the finishing touches on our business plan. We have adopted a financing plan to secure the capital we need that minimizes risk to investors and offers an independent return on investment. So this whole, USFL kicking off in 2022. I mean, it would seem like, you know what I'm saying, that this is maybe tempering those expectations a little bit.
Maybe, possibly. And, again, a lot of people just brought up the financial concerns of the USFL. Like, how are they able to do this when less than a year ago, players were saying Firefest of food at our hotels?
For
still a lot of concerns. And I think they're trying to tamper those concerns. But I mean, unless you see the books are open, not necessarily the books are completely open, but unless you see a plan, there's always going to be these concerns.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting, because people were talking about the money. They said all the pieces are in place. At present, our sole focus is completing our financial arrangements so that we can then select teams, cities, hire coaches, sign players, and present exciting, high quality, and competitive spring football. So, spoiler alert, if Spring League hasn't hired coaches or anybody, the XFL hasn't hired coaches or anybody. Like, spoiler alert, like none of these people. Also, Mike did say that on that interview with The Drive, he's like, people think all this stuff is happening behind the scenes. Like, it's really not. Like, it's really like, this is not the Illuminati. Like, this is not, I mean, these are like, okay, and we're almost done with the show. Like, when June Jones came out and like speculated about the XFL last year, remember how like quick that was shut down? Like, they're not, like, there's no, people have mouths and they will say things. And if there was anything happening, we would know about it.
Exactly. More Spring League notes, I should say. TSL Jousters QB Drew Anderson signed by the Elks, your team, Reed. Of course, he played college ball at Murray State, would go on to join the Cardinals, play a little bit there. Curious to see what he does in Canada. Yeah,
and then Stefan Banks, he is signing with the Stampeders. He was on the big Mega Bowl champions with the linemen. So yeah, it's good to see. I mean, Toronto signed a lot of people too with the CFL. I mean, I'll be curious to see if anyone else winds up there. But good to see guys doing this. This is a weird statement. I'm going to update this real quick. MLFB is a Major League Football. Like, is it a scam? Is it a football league? A lot of people, Paul, have interest in this because they bought all the old AAF helmets and equipment and things like forever ago now. So because this league did that like 2 years ago, now everyone all the time, they're like, hey, when's the MLFB coming back? So they had originally said earlier this year that they were going to play this summer. And then now it's July 1st. And if they're going to be playing this summer, I don't know when that is happening. So they have a new statement on their website. They're talking about the USFL, and this kind of relates to the MLFB as well. They're talking about the big Mike Florio article that we had with Steve Earhart when they were like, who owns the USFL? But basically, they're saying like because the USFL isn't paying their players, they're operating. They are going to be playing. The MLFB will be playing a regular season of games in spring of 2022, in which quality players will be paid for their services in 6 cities in the United States. So all these players or people that have messaged all the time like MLFB is playing this summer. They're talking on here about how they're going to be playing next year now. So we get a lot of questions about that. So I wanted to update that. That is on the MLFB website.
A lot of these leagues, it's July and they're planning to go next year. Let's see. Let's see.
Also, just please, just because one person or just because they tweet something or so, think of everything in the world that changed in the last 2 years. This whole the XFL said that they were playing in 2022. Yeah, back last August. Think of everything that has happened in the last year till now. Things change, plans change, MLFB, all these things, but it kills me. They're like, well, the XFL, they said they were going to be playing. Yeah, on the Twitter.
There is a Delta variant too.
Yeah, I mean, everything changes. Anyway, but it sounds like the MLFB is kind of taking shots at the USFL, which I don't really think is their place to because the MLFB hasn't played either. But they're like, well, we're definitely paying our players because the Spring League doesn't pay. We don't know what the USFL is going to do. I mean, I assume the USFL is going to pay their players, but anyway.
I definitely assume. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Sorry it was such a weird, disjointed show in terms of Reed taking the wheel. Again, I have to go get myself checked out. I'm being ordered again to go get myself checked out multiple times in the next week after the blast. And hopefully Reed soon will have that tooth issue fixed. And we will bring, you showed me the brace earlier. Is it hard to not mess around with it?
Yes,
because it's there. That's terrible.
Are you sad there's no FCF news this week, Paul?
I am not sad. I
put that in the show that there's no FCF news this week. I scoured the globe.
If the soundboard was working, I would fire the applause button right now. So thanks for everyone joining us this week. Remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, it's Reed's birthday. Give him a great birthday.
Yeah, like and subscribe.
Like the videos, hit the bell to get notifications. We appreciate all that. We appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'll see you next week.